Hello, everybody. My name is Ashley L.
And I'm Becky Nitka.
And we chose the therapy Rosenbek's 8-step continuum. Rosenbek's 8-step continuum is a clinician-centered therapy approach that treats apraxia of speech using 8 specific steps of drill therapy. This approach targets production of words or utterances that are functional for the client and are based on the severity of the client's diagnosis. Selected targets should be no more than 3 syllables, and target utterances should be no more than 7 words. The 8-step continuum utilizes integral stimulation, simultaneous production, delayed production, and successive production, which we will define in a later slide.
Each of these steps increases in its difficulty with a hierarchy of speech sounds and a slow fade of auditory and visual cues from the clinician. This approach intends to increase generalization by the final step and encourages self-correction with high levels of success and little to no frustration or struggle from the client. Rosenbek recommends 80% correctness with 20 trials for each step.
This therapy is used for adults with severe apraxia. Acquired apraxia of speech is due to neurological damage, which can include stroke, traumatic brain injuries, or neurological diseases. Variations for pediatric populations include integral stimulation therapy. The client must be able to follow auditory instructions and monitor their own production.
Some key definitions. Integral stimulation is a procedure where the clinician models the target, providing auditory and visual cues. Watch me, listen to me. Simultaneous production requires the client and clinician to produce the target at the same time. Say it with me.
Delayed production requires the client to produce the target after the clinician models the target. A clinician would say, "You say it after me." Successive production requires the client to produce the target multiple times consecutively. The clinician would say it X number of times.
The 8 steps. The first step uses integral stimulation and simultaneous production, so the client provides auditory and visual cues as they say the target together.
The second step includes integral stimulation and delayed production. Using integral stimulation and delayed production, the clinician fades the auditory cues while miming the word or utterance as the client produces the target.
The third step uses delayed production. The client produces the target after the clinician models, so there's no simultaneous cues provided in this step.
In step 4, successive production is used. The client produces several consecutive targets after the clinician models once.
Step 5, the client produces the target simultaneously while looking at written stimuli.
In step 6, written stimuli occurs with delayed production. Written stimuli is presented to the client and then removed, and then the client produces the target.
Step 7, the clinician presents a question that elicits a response using the target from the client.
In step 8, the clinician produces a role-playing situation in which the clinician elicits the target from the client.
So some advantages and disadvantages of this therapy approach. So the main advantage is the flexibility. So the steps can be adapted for each individual client, and the targets can be based off of the severity of the diagnosis. So someone with very severe apraxia, you might only want to do a word, where someone that has less severe apraxia, you could probably do an entire utterance. And you can also base your selections off of things that interest them or things that they need to know how to say. Also, the correctness level is relative for each client. Disadvantage of the therapy approach is that 20 trials can sometimes be a little tedious, and Rosenbek and colleagues found that step 4 was rather difficult when they did their case studies.
We used 2 research articles with a level 3 type of evidence for this presentation. Each group of authors used case studies to demonstrate their findings. So the first research article, it's titled "A Treatment of Apraxia of Speech in Adults." It was written by Rosenbek and colleagues in 1973. Our second article was written by Deal and Florence in 1978, and they re-examined the continuum, looking at whether the program could increase communication for those with severe apraxia, home programs, whether the steps needed to be done systematically, and if step 4 actually is too difficult.
They found that the program restored some communication. Home programs are successful if the caretaker follows strict instructions. So this is when the program can be brought home and done between a caretaker and the client. It is not necessary to follow the steps systematically, so some steps can be skipped, or the program can even be ended early if the target is established. And they also found that step 4 did not prove to be too difficult for their case studies.
Additionally, Deal and Florence, they offer an alternative to percent correctness by using a cumulative 80% correctness, regardless of the number of trials. So in the original case study with Rosenbek and colleagues, they had 20 trials, and if the client didn't achieve 80% accuracy, then the 20 trials was repeated until the client reached the 80% accuracy. Deal and Florence, however, believe that by doing it that way, too many trials would need to occur for them to achieve 80% correctness. So instead, they just said, add up all of the trials, and once you reach 80%, then you can go on to the next step.
So next we will be doing our demonstration. So Ashley will be playing the clinician. I will be playing the client, Andrew, a 72-year-old male. We chose the target word Catherine for Andrew because it's his wife's name and therefore a functional word that he would use in everyday speech. And just to note, for the sake of time, we will not be doing 20 trials for each step.
We're going to say the name Catherine. Watch and listen to me as we say it together. Catherine.
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 Okay. I'm going to say her name once, and then you'll say it after I say it, and I'm going to mouth it with you. Ready? Catherine.
Catherine. Catherine.
Good. I'm going to say her name once, and then you'll say it after me. Catherine.
Catherine.
We're going to try that one more time. Catherine.
Catherine.
Okay, good. I'm going to say her name once, and then you're going to say it after me 3 times. Catherine.
Catherine. Catherine. Catherine.
Great. We'll try that one more time. Ready? Catherine.
Catherine. Catherine. Catherine.
Okay. What does this say on the paper?
Catherine.
Great. Let's try that one more time. What does that say on the paper?
Catherine.
Okay. I'm going to show you the paper. What did it say on the paper?
Catherine.
Great. And what's your wife's name?
Catherine.
Good. My husband's name is Tim, and on the weekend, we like to go hiking. What do you like to do?
My wife, Catherine, and I, we like to go to the movies on the weekend.
Great.